Hold on to your baskets or any other body part in 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Nitty Gritty with your hosts, Marc Graue
and Deb Munro. A podcast with no boundaries that tells it like it is.
This ain't your mama's show.
This is the Nitty Gritty.
Yay, we're here, but I don't see you. I see your pretty picture, but I don't see you.
Oh, wait a second. Where am I?
Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Munro.
It's a miracle, and I'm Marc Graue. Hi, everybody. How are you?
He's really here. He's really here after all.
Look at that. I got my buttons pushed and everything. Wait a minute. I'll be with you in a minute.
That's easy for me to do.
Yes, it is. How did you know?
Now, how you been? How's summer going so far? We're in summer.
Doing great. Busy. Got back from the One Voice conference in Dallas, which was wonderful to catch up, especially with Jace Patrick and Eric Bauza, who are dear old friends who I haven't seen. It was great because Eric, I kind of came up behind him. I said, "Hey," and he turned around and went, "It's you." That was my, that's my mission, is to get a picture with the real you, not the cardboard cutout. so yeah, we had a good time catching up. So
it's a nice trip down memory lane, isn't it, for you guys? Because I mean, really, when I remember when we met and we held the party at your studio.
When was that? That's a long time.
Over 20 years ago. It was 2009.
Wow.
So under 20 years, I guess now. And I remember, I think it was even you saying, like, wow, it took Deb to introduce us all to each other. Like, we're all around each other all the time and we don't even know each other. That LA camaraderie, right? So there's a lot of people you don't see for a long time because at one
we're so in and out of
sessions.
Yeah, it's very, what's interesting is it used to be that at least you would run into everybody at sessions. So you'd, even if it was an audition, you'd have an audition at the buyers, at a casting directors, at your agent, and you'd walk, "Hey man, how you been?" And you'd shoot that, they'd come out and go, "Shut up out, be quiet," because we'd be making too much noise. But at least that way there was still that camaraderie when you would see everyone, which was great. And now we don't have that anymore. I mean, everybody, even, once in a great while, you'll get, an audition but that's usually reserved for a callback, or you're actually booking the session. A lot of the time they're even bypassing that entire thing now, which is crazy.
And it used to be they would do ensemble recordings.
Oh, sure.
They're really getting away with the ensemble recordings now. Do you feel the same?
Well, animation still has that to it, because you're still playing off of characters and stuff. It's interesting. Animation, they try to do a cast if possible, because that's what really gives it that fun and a little bit of ad-libbing and playing off each other. Exactly. The neat thing is when you have an animation script, you actually get to see the other character and who you're replying, reacting, all that stuff too. So you can weave that into what your reaction is and mention it, and you can ad-lib a little bit. And they love that, as long as you're not going, crazy nuts. It's like they want you to bring that character to life. Yeah. Where video games, you're always by yourself. I think we did Spider-Man and it was not, it just wasn't a brilliant idea, because everybody sat there while this person did their 300 lines and this people did 800 and this, so it made no sense.
It's not interactive, right? Which is that big difference. I know my first introduction to animation, I was very blessed to do ensemble, but then after that, it was all dubbing. So it was all individual. So it was such a different twist.
Now, dubbing, if you're doing anime, that kind of stuff, or localization
by yourself,
and that, it's interesting that you would bring that up too, because you need to be prepared, and a director that's good too. You got to change stuff constantly, because what you're working on is called lip flap, and you're trying to, so that you don't end up with, the classical bad karate. So you think you're a tough guy, huh? Kind of thing,
Bruce Lee movies that we so loved.
but so now that lip flap is very important to try and match. So you'll have to change, kinds of, because languages obviously are very, very different. It's funny, we've run into that even with Spanish. Spanish is inherently longer than English, so it's not going to fit in that same time frame. So you'll have to be changing things up a lot, and just be prepared to do that, and also, those, if you're used to doing it, it's usually a 3B system. So it's, 1, 2, 3, talk. What most people do is they go 1, 2, 3. And now if you catch your breath on that four, you're already out.
Oopsie.
It's like, yeah, you need to catch your breath on that third beat, and then you'll be right in sync. But yeah, so yeah, there's definitely an art to that. But it's real animation, or if you want to call it that, is basically drawn to you, which they put in all the
Yeah.
quirks, the funny laughs, the whatever those little anomalies are. They'll add that in the drawing.
And you know what's kind of interesting is in my introduction to animation, which was at an animation studio in Vancouver, and they did the first workshop that I'd ever heard of for voice acting at the time. Again, this is 25 something years ago now. And they talked about, in Canada they called it prelay. So prelay was basically ensemble. And then as I researched it, it wasn't called prelay anywhere else. It was just called prelay here. So I think that's the term for it, right? Or do you guys just call it animation, or is it called ensemble when it's animated and they're drawing after you? Is there a name for
Well,
it?
it's basically essentially, but yeah, in other words, if you're on the studio side of that is prelay, yes.
Okay,
And
so it is
basically,
termed that
what
way
you're
in the
doing
States
is
as
you're going
well.
to go in and they're going to get all their drawings and stuff, and then many times what will happen is you'll go back in for pickups. That because the audio obviously is going to be fine. What when you do an animation session, it's called a normal pause edit, and a normal pause edit is 8 frames between each character, if you want to get technical. And what that does is if you leave it, it sounds perfectly natural. That's why you don't step on each other's lines.
Yeah.
Because if you do, and let's say they loved what you did but didn't like what I did, and I stepped on your lines, then we're stuck. We're both going to have to redo lines.
Right.
And so that normal power, you always just leave a beat bump, and that way I can tighten it up. That way also gives them the ability to layer that if they want, so that in other words, what that one character is stepping on another character if that's what they want to do. But that normal pause edit, yeah, that's what it's 8
And
frames.
I think that stuff's really important for talent to hear, because talent don't understand the behind scenes. And I think that's a disadvantage for them when they haven't had the privilege to work, behind scenes in any capacity, where they don't understand what they need to feed the animator, what they need to feed the engineer, what they need to feed the director. They just listen to direction, do that, and then carry on. But
Well,
there's
and
really so
two,
much to
they
learn.
really need to know, like learn. You always hear that I need to learn what my craft is, and it's like, but you really do need to know what that process is, what's going on, so that when if animation is what you want to do, and you do an animation demo and get it ready to go, know what's to be expected. It's the same situation with Source Connect. Know what that does. Know that if there's a loop, I know for absolutely hands down positive, if there's a loop happening, it's either because computer audio is on or it's on their end. I know for a fact it's not on this end because of how it's routed.
Yeah.
And so you get into those, well, no, it's like, well, yes, it's not, and so but make sure that you are aware of what your stuff does, because a client will be a client it's very funny. If it goes well, you'll hear nothing. If it goes badly, that's all you'll be hearing for the next 5 years. Oh my
Yeah,
God, it was
exactly.
awful. Oh my God, we had problems and this and that. And the thing is, now it's so simple. I mean, I come from an era where, we used to have center track time code, which time code was that ridiculously high pitch, which was laying down code, and you'd have to prelay that first onto a tape, but you can't do it while you're recording. You have to do that first, then you back it up, and that's on its own track, and then you can go back and it'll chase, meaning you can follow whatever time code you're doing if that time code is on there. So it was now it's nothing. I mean, everybody's just got QuickTime, boop, 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 done. It's nothing. It's
Yeah,
a
so
breeze.
okay, so for me, I understand reel to reel in a commercial spec, because that's where I was. I did commercials. I never did animation in that kind of atmosphere. So when reel to reel is just audio, so would they have a reel to reel for animation, then a reel to reel for audio, and then they have to mesh those two
No, no,
things
no. What that was back then is either if you could have 2-inch 24 track. A lot of people would just for laying down track. Fostex had it basically, and you had a separate track on the recorder that was just time code.
Okay.
That's all. That was just time. And so what you would do is that's what would sync, and you'd have to have a synchronizer and all of this outboard gear, so that if I push this button, everything's going to chase that time code. Now,
Right.
what's funny is when, that used to be notorious too, where things would jump a frame and get out of, and then all
Yeah.
your machines are all going, hey, it's like The Exorcist. It's like, what my mama says,
One
shut up,
second
machine.
causes hell.
And yeah, they're just going nuts and everything's taken off and data, and it's like, well, shit, that, trying to, because it's the machines are going rocking back, trying to find out where the time code is. And so that
Wow.
was a huge pain in the butt. I mean, just nightmare. Which reminds me, we were doing there used to be a toy called Teddy Ruxpin. And this has been
Yes.
years and years and years ago. And we were doing just that. And it was locking up so that we could do it beep, boop, boop. And then the guy who comes in, he goes, hi, I'm Teddy Ruxpin, and it's this cute little, and he would get this flap into the little toy. We were in this session forever. Things weren't locking, whatever. They had given us when you have time code in that you're dealing with different frame rates. The normal is 2997 drop frame, but if it's not drop frame and it's like film, could be 30 frame or it could be 20. So and just it sounds like nothing, but it completely throws, it's like basically you walking into a session and they're all speaking Chinese. I mean,
Yeah.
you're like, so the machines don't understand each other. They have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
So as the session went in late in the night, we basically were doing some awful things with Teddy Ruxpin. So he was, so here's this adorable little bear, like this going, hey, go fuck yourself. I mean, it was truly bad.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
But it was like, and it was good. We had turned into a bunch of stupid high school kids,
It might have been your studio that did the penis and the mermaid castle and all the covers. Yeah.
all the silliness, you know. But it's I mean, I even back when I took the Tommy Lee Pamela Lee porno thing, but over the top of it laid Scott Hamilton and Dick Button announcing ice skating,
Oh
and
God.
it's. Look at the extension he's got on that, and of course, Dick Button, and that's as good as they come. It's if you can get past what you're looking at, it's very funny, but it's pretty disgusting too. But anyway, so that was with time code. Now, QuickTime's nothing. They just put it up, blah, 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 everything's locked up. It's fine. It's and even Source Connect. And now the new version of 4 that chases as well. So you can just basically and you let them, you give me control and I can control it right here, and your picture is going to go right along with mine.
Oh, so now it's including video so that they can sync.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And the pro version always has, but now just the standard version is doing
Oh,
that.
okay. I didn't know that. That's what
And the beauty is too, you no longer have to do port forwarding. You can just have it and put it in, and it's going to work. And it'll work.
Oh, that's nice. I'm glad they advanced that side of it.
Yeah.
What a change, hey, from I mean, I feel privileged to talk about the past because you've been a part of, pretty much the beginning up. I know there was a beginning still before, but when they did animation back in the day, we typically the best animation we voice first, they animate afterwards. It gives the animator so much more freedom. Is that how they did it back then, or did they?
Yeah. And what usually, I mean, it'd even go back to they'd have like a cassette player. The artist at his desk could just back it up and go and listen again, and listen again, and get all those little subtleties down. And they would do, line drawings first to get that all down, and then you'd have a guy. The process is amazing when you have this and a colorist and a background artist. And I mean, it's good Lord. It's astounding the amount of manpower, not only hours, but people themselves that goes into 30 seconds of finished animation is nuts. It's
and
crazy.
then back then it would be years before you could get an animation on the air. Now it's a lot faster because of technology allowing it. So for everybody, imagine what it must have been like with probably considerably a skeleton crew compared to what you have now.
Well, South Park was the first one. They actually devised their own animated system, and that's why it's clunky and dead. Hey, kind of. But it's that, and they can rip those out just instantly. That style of animation works really well with that. Now, if you're talking something like DreamWorks, Disney, yes, a lot of it is computer, but it still takes massive amounts of time and to get that beautiful degree look and in other words that 3 degree or 4, just where you're really
Feels real.
drawn into what's going on, and you have
Yeah.
the backgrounds that draw you in and the characters draw you in, and and it's really, and that's that marriage of voice and where they're drawing that to your voice.
Yeah.
And so that's when you really enhance all of those, wonderful emotions, and that's really what you're trying to do.
And I think that's really important for especially newbies to understand is that I always word it as you have to feed the animator. What are you feeding the animator? And that there's a fine line, I know, because a lot of talent today are hearing no ad lib, no ad lib, which isn't really a true factor when it gets to animation. I like to word it better as embellishments versus ad libbing, because I think a lot of people find ad libbing to be just added words. Whereas an embellishment can be just the way in which you say a word that's already scripted, but it's just the way you say
That's
it.
absolutely true. As long as whatever you are doing relates specifically to that character and that line, then that's great. Then it's no longer an ad lib. It's a part of that person's speech, and
Yeah.
you're just bringing a different skew to it. But you don't even notice. It's like Robin was a dear old pal from forever ago, and when he'd go off, you wouldn't even. He was so fast and so witty, you weren't even thinking, "Wow, this is out." It was just like bum, 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 bum,
Went.
bum, and he just one thing to another, to another, to another, to another, kind of thing, and that kind of. I mean, that's very quick and on your feet, but realize that a casting director, a buyer, that they want you to book this job. They want you to be the guy that knocks that out of the park, where they go, holy shit, my God, you got to hear that. Oh my God, this is incredible. And so in order to do that, enhancing it a little bit, so they're not going to go, oh my God, Bob, did you hear that? Oh my God, they ad-libbed on the first sentence. Send the voiceover police. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
it isn't that, but realize that it's not, gee, wow, gosh, oh, I was thinking. That's not an ad-lib. That just is, you're just
That's
dirtying
free
up the
life. Get
dialogue.
you in there, yeah.
But if it's actually part of whatever that sentence is, and it's the same thing as language. I've had people that go, oh no, I'd never use, I don't feel comfortable using bad language. It's like, well, then get another job. I mean, I'm sorry, it's acting. And it's not, I'm not going to tell them, if that's what the character is, and he's a gritty street thug and da-da-da, and he's, hey, but fucking whatever. I don't walk around the house doing that.
Yeah.
Well, there are times if I stub my toe, but
We are talking about you after all.
I mean, it is an acting job, so
Yeah.
it's just that you are taking on, and that's the biggest thing to realize with all of this too, is that take on the persona of that character. It's not a voice. Oh, okay, I'm going to do a thug. Okay, I got a thug. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like there's 8 bazillion people that can do that. What are you going to bring to that aside from the voice? Now, great, you've got the voice. What you need to really sell now is that emotion. And that could be whether he's Weasley, whether he's dishonest, whether he's big, whether he's chestus, boisterous, funny, fun to be with, mean-spirited, sadistic. I mean, all of those things all come into play. It's the same thing as with anger. There's so many different kinds of anger. There's rage. There's internal anger, where it's more internalized. There's loud, there's anger, being afraid,
Sarcastic.
that turns into, I mean, all, oh yeah, and that all is going to come into play into how you indeed approach that project. I always tell people, when I'm coaching, if everybody throw out the punctuation. You
Yeah.
see an exclamation mark, and the first thing does is everybody yells. And it's like, that's great if it's in the middle of a battle scene, but you can do it even though it's like, well, both of you yell. They're not, I've never heard a caster, wow, come here and listen to how he's yelling. I mean, you can do it on one, and I mean, everybody's got the ability to yell. So
Yeah.
do that on one, but then give it, you can still go, let's get them. Let's get them. And then you can, let's get them. And you do that on a second. So you've still got intensity.
That intensity.
Yelled on one, then you've got intensity on this. So just show, that's your spotlight to show them everything that character would have.
And I think that's where a lot of talent don't realize those are guideline directions. And so what happens is a lot of people take on the exact same yell, the exact same way. And so it doesn't become creative, or more importantly, it doesn't become a personality. And you might have, which Marc was talking about a moment ago, you might have a great voice, but there's a lot of voices like that. So that's not what makes it special. What really makes it special are your stereotypes, your history, your backstory, and how you bring that into this character. Because what you think is angry, yelling, villain might be completely different than what I think is angry, yelling villain. And that's what makes it so beautiful, is that we have such different
Well, and the
interpretations.
thing is too, is that if you look at these actors that you, as you know, Al Pacino, oh my God. Well, to me, Al Pacino is playing Al Pacino. I
Everything he
personally,
does.
somebody like Jim Carrey is like, wow,
Yeah,
because he has the ability to do crazy zany comedy and
that's
still
right.
do drama
And
as
do
well,
serious. Yeah.
and everything in between.
And
And
he
to me,
can be someone
you know,
different. I think, like, Meryl Streep's also another one where
absolutely.
she's revered as one of the best actresses of all time, is because she's so emotionally, but she's really being, she might be changing her personality a bit on each character, but she's still, you're seeing the core of Meryl Streep and everything she does. I used
And
to
what
say
she's
that.
changing is that emotion.
Exactly.
That's
I used to
exactly what
say
it
that
is.
about Eddie Murphy, and
Mhm.
I was very blown away with Eddie Murphy, because I actually used to say, well, Eddie Murphy isn't the best voice actor. And the reason I say that is because he's predictably Eddie Murphy in everything he does, until I saw him in an interview with Barbara Walters, which at that time was extremely rare to see him in any interview. He
Right.
was out of the media, he wasn't involved in anything, and he plays this fun-loving, hilarious, sarcastic guy, and he's a comedian. And when I saw him on the interview, Barbara says to him, like, Eddie, what's wrong? Like, why aren't you the guy that we see all the time? And he goes, why does everybody think that's me? And it's a
Yeah, yeah.
persona he put on for the world, because he's not a happy-go-lucky guy.
But
He's
when he had the,
kind
you know, like Beverly Hills Cop, that kind of stuff, he was so incredibly magnetic. I mean, he had that factor of where he just lit
absolutely
every scene he did, he just lit it
brilliant.
up. You know,
Yeah.
he just, but I mean, just his persona, the way he looked, the way he handled himself, he was just absolutely, perfect,
Well, and
for that role.
that's what makes me feel he's such a brilliant actor now. Instead of thinking before, where I was thinking, oh, he's the same in everything he does, he's actually not. That's not really who he is. He's brought on this persona for everybody to enjoy on film and on camera. And I'm sure there's a bit of him in everything. But when you saw the interview, it was so far from him. He was more recluse. He wasn't giddy. He wasn't hyper. He wasn't any of those things. And from his own words, explain, like, why do you think that's who I am? And so I found a new respect for him at that point, where, wow, this guy has
Well,
totally.
I think what happens too is that you reach a certain level, and that's what they want you to do. That's the role you're booking, is to
Yeah,
come in
fair
and
enough.
go, okay, it's like you did in
Stereocast.
this. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and so you're it's that typecasting, but yeah, a different level. But that's what they want. They
It
want that
works, so
kind
why
of a
not?
thing where a
Yeah.
character actor, is just that chameleon, like, wow, that's incredible. I mean, this is an amazing role, that kind of stuff. I had immense respect for Charlize Theron, who is absolutely stunningly
My
gorgeous.
favorite actress.
But when she did that, what was the mass murder?
Monster. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and it was like with the no makeup and and she was just
Wow.
a badass, and it really showed. She is an incredibly talented
I
girl. I
think
mean,
she's one of the
like,
best
wow,
actors of all time.
you
I
know.
really do. I think that role, just like, Christopher Bale did in The Machinist and stuff like that, like, there's something so engulfing when they completely change who they are and become whoever this persona
But see,
is, in this case.
but that you just put your finger on, because that's exactly what you need to do with a character. Except you are speaking with a microphone. The
'Cause it's
hardest
not you
part with
anymore.
that is when you have a microphone, you immediately put your headphones on and go, "Oh my God, look, can you give me more me? Wow,
No.
look at,
Or, ooh, is that my voice?
wow, God, and I mean, it just, and you get kind of locked into that thing, Rob. And I always suggest, sometimes putting a little doll, a little something up that you
Yeah,
can talk to,
yeah,
so now you have, your brain goes, it gives you a visual of,
right.
okay, I'm speaking, that kind of feel. But feel free to go for it. The thing with, like I've done auditions that were, because again, I play so many dead, mutated, twisted people, that where they've gone, yeah, no, that was good. We got to really pull that back. I mean, dude, that was fucked up. And it's like, but you booked me, so it's like, and that's great. So, I mean, so go to that level,
Yeah.
and that way you become memorable and your head's above what everybody else is doing. Because they know you can pull back. They don't know you can get
Yeah,
there. Show
exactly.
them that you can.
Well, and
Show
I
them
think
that you
that the
can,
thing that people don't realize the most is because they hear this all the time, they'll say, "Well, I don't think that I wouldn't say it that way." Well, that's correct. You personally wouldn't say it that way, but your character is. And so you have to find a way to lose you in it and yet bring all the nuances of your life into it where depending on, how your performance level is, but most of us will draw from our own emotional experiences, our own
Sure,
stereotypes, our own all that stuff and bring that and that's what brings us into it, our signature, but we
absolutely.
can still completely remove who we are personally without any judgment. Like a villain doesn't think they're a bad person. They don't mind killing people. Why is that wrong? What's the matter with that? And so you have to completely remove your mindset and you have someone who's very shy and reserved. It's very hard for them to be egotistic. It's
Well,
very
it's
hard for
even
them.
like that. That brings up even pacing. When you have a villain, um, nobody's telling that guy, nobody's telling Hannibal like, yeah, I know you're going to eat me. Get on with it. It's like, no. I mean,
Yeah,
that guy can take all the time you want.
that's
Now,
right.
if in a live session they may say we need to pick it up, et cetera, it's running long. But audition wise, chew that scenery absolutely
Yeah,
positively. If you really want, people that are really demented are usually enjoying it. So put in a bit of,
yeah.
instead of going, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. Now put in some smile and go, this is going to hurt.
Hmm.
And it's like, now you just sound like, God, you twisted bastard. What's that
Exactly.
like?
I
And
think
it's
that's
just,
the thing is if people study, like I like studying everyone around me as a character,
mm,
a potential character, because they're not done. And a lot of people are studying, like a lot of the kids study their idolizations, their golems and their, all their
sure.
characters, but they're already done. So if you can find ways to mimic your elders and mimic your best friend and mimic the dentist you had that was a
And
little
that's the key. And the whole thing is a great example is I talk about the Pirates of the Caribbean thing is we have a lot of guys and they do pirates, and it's like, but the stereotypical pirate is that, hey, I have no idea what you're doing, do you, boy? Okay, that's, well, going into the Senate was like, no, that's not what we want. He needs to be high range, completely drunk out of it. So they ended up with, well, it's not like this kind of, I'll give you 20 to lose on the run.
while.
And it's still part, but it's a completely different, like
Well,
not
it's
even
the new
close.
stereotype for a pirate now is what it is.
Yeah. So you walk in and go, okay, this is what I'm. It's like, okay. So, and that's the big thing too, is to be prepared. It's like I do voice it. That doesn't matter. I've been working with a woman who's very, that's not, no, I'm not doing that. That's not me. It's we're going to have a hell of a time in this business because our job is to be chameleons. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's like whatever comes down the pipe. It's like there's going to be things that fit like you could, it's a no-brainer, man. That's right in my wheelhouse, and other stuff that's a bit of a stretch, but yeah, let's
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
and it's in there. It's just a matter of having that come out. The problem is we all have a tendency to put up these blocks with, oh well, yeah, because I don't really have that kind of register. How do you know?
Yeah. That's the truth.
You've never it's like looking at a character. It's like if he's big, he's going to have that chesty kind of big, pushing a lot of air. If he's really thin, he could be a little Weasley kind of thing. It's whatever
Yeah.
that is, but just it's use every little tool you can to your advantage. If it has
Mhm.
a picture, look at that picture. Look at how do you think the guy would move? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
if he's big, he's going to move kind of slowly and ponderously, or he's going to be kind of slinky and sleazy and kind of scoot from this to this to this to this, whatever that may be. But all of that will come into play in your voice too.
And for people that are just starting out, which we see all the time, where they have a studio set up at home. Now, a lot of people have a closet. They have to voice in something very small, very confined. But I find a lot of the newer students I'm seeing, they're all sitting. and because we've created a lazy society and everybody
Right.
wants to sit, and it doesn't mean you can't sit while you're voicing, but he was just describing about movement, and I see a lot of talent just move their lips. They're not moving their body. They're not involved in the scene. They're not understanding that this does move, even though your feet might stay still.
But the
That's the key.
physicality, absolutely. That's a huge because you are that is what in turn helps you become that character. Is that
Exactly.
physical? Is he bent over? Is it eye squinted up? Is it yeah, all of that kind of stuff? Sure.
And how is he moving in space? Is he running right now? Then how are you going to allow your breath to help you showcase that? There's so much little things in the script that is never written out for you that you
And
have to
even
have
but the stuff
insight
that is, and that's a great example, is like when they write out loud, no one goes he, ha, ha, ha. It's not,
to.
we don't laugh that way, even
True.
though it's written out that way.
Yeah.
So you can, what try and incorporate that into whatever the line is. So it's like, well, you have no idea,
Mhm.
rather than he, you have no idea.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like,
always here's my action, and then here's the line.
yeah,
Here's my
yeah.
action. Here's well,
And
no, make the
incorporate,
action
yeah,
in the line.
intertwine those, and that's yeah. Now that become the character. That's something a character would do because normally when we speak, that's what we do. We don't go ha 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 talk ha ha
Yeah.
ha talk. You usually incorporate that continues right into whatever you're saying.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or I love
Yeah.
it when you get a talent to laugh and they're supposed to laugh and into the read, and then they laugh and then they exasperate out. They're done laughing and then they go in and it's like, okay, it's not funny now. The
Well,
laugh
yeah. It's
is in
like
there and they
why
don't
was that
realize
there?
that.
It's like oh yeah. So it just but there's all kinds of little tricks like that to just and again that goes back to kind of getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
It's just that we all have blocks that you put up that it's like well whether it be a block that's mental that you're going out or a block that's personal or because of oh well I don't feel comfortable doing that kind of
Mhm.
commercial or that kind of spot. I understand that, but the interesting thing is when you are starting out, don't set up a bunch of blocks before you even get going
Yeah,
because
of
now you've
course.
got, 10 things to overcome for a client to overcome to book you.
Yeah,
And you
it's
need to
right.
have that completely well, there's nothing. It's like you've got the equipment, you've got the talent, everything. It's like, boom, yep, got this, let's go. No
I feel I
issues.
go through that a little bit because I think I think naturally I'm really gifted at commercial narration. All that. It's just easy and natural for me. It's just something that's easy. I had to learn not to be broadcasty in it because of my original training, but
Sure,
I find
sure.
it very easy to connect to, relate to. Um, Animation, I find it really easy to direct, but then when I do it myself, I feel like there's a creative control somehow happening where I know what I'm supposed to do, but then in the moment, I end up focusing on either a placement or which I normally try not to because I know better. I know it's the
Right.
character that I'm trying to become, but I feel less creative sometimes. And I watch my fellow colleagues like yourself and Ellie and stuff, and it's like, wow, you just move mountains in one sentence. And to have that, I think there is a naturalness to that too. I think some people are gifted with it and some people are
Sure.
not, and some people have to work harder at it. I'm just one of those ones who had to work harder at that imagination, even though I'm crazy. I'm fun. I'm silly.
But
I
you know what a lot of that is too is muscle memory, and I always liken it to driving a car. The first time you drive a car, you've got white knuckles in the mirror, and you're doing this and da da da. Do you do that? No, no. You just get in the car and you look there, you
yeah,
look
you
at your
just
and you
go.
go. It's
Yeah,
just because it's muscle memory,
you just
and
don't.
that's kind of the same thing with copy. Is that the real portion, the copy itself, what's really going to speak to you is the copy. The direction, that's fine, but sometimes we know the direction is so out there and makes no
Or
it's kind of
confusing.
like William H. Macy if it was Jim Carrey's voice, but a quality like Samuel L. Jackson or James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
If he was Sam Elliott. I mean, it's
oh my
like,
gosh.
eh?
He got
It's just,
everybody.
well, I mean, they just scat what and I know I've seen stuff like where
Yeah,
or
because they don't know
so
what they're saying.
disparate, it's like, what? These are not this you aren't even similar. And what happens is your brain naturally goes, oh my God, well, they're doing this and this and that. And then you're just doing a bad impression of what you just heard. I always
Yeah.
suggest lay down a few first before listening to the links and doing all of that. But the key to this is, unless it's a voice match, which is very different, that's dead on. That's not, oh, it's pretty close. It doesn't, no, it is not pretty close. It's got to be dead on voice
Mhm.
match. That's a whole different beast. But when they put all of these different things up, you once again, what's really going to tell you where to go is the copy. You
Yeah,
can tell how that's written. You can tell, once again, is he swarmy? Is he nice? Is he
yeah.
regal? Is he part of a royal family? Should it
And
be
I think
RP
I
or
can,
should it
like,
be?
for me, those things are the easier part. It's actually adding more embellishments, creativity to the scene, even though I know to do so. Like in auditions, it's a little easier. It's a shorter piece. I can go through it, really make some choices for myself. And unfortunately, I end up making choices for myself versus it just being a very natural, easy flow for me. And so I find that I have to work it more to get more creative in those. And it's not just the embellishments, it's actually seeing, like, for example, there was a script that we were doing and it was a buoy. So the buoy was coming to life. It was for a water safety thing, and it's a commercial, but it's a cartoon commercial.
Right.
And when we did it in a class, I had never thought, this was an audition that came to me, and I never thought about sounding like I was bouncing in the water. Things like that. It's like those little
Sure,
insights
sure.
to the character's world.
Well, a great example is like, if somebody goes for a woman and goes, okay, it's a witch. The first place you're going to do is, I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, and it's like, well, why couldn't she be a 400-pound witch that's English with a lisp?
Yeah, of course.
You
Exactly.
know, and even, when you think English, people immediately go to RP, that kind of thing. Well, why not bring him up a bit and give him a little bit of a list? So it's got a little more feminine kind of feel, like he's
Yeah.
got frilly things on his thing. Or you can get jowly, like, so it's very wet kind of feel. And because he's heavy, it's probably has hard times
No, like, yeah.
breathing.
Yeah.
That so in all of those little things, that's what brings that character alive, and play with that. They're not, the whole thing with this is that it's acting. I use this adage a lot, but it's like, I don't know what it is. We're all gregarious and personality driven, and we're all out there, and we're VO people, and you put a script in front of you, and all of a sudden we're filling out a financial form. And it's like, oh, don't color outside the lines.
Oh God.
And I mean, everybody gets so serious about,
Yes.
and I've worked with guys that are like, all of a sudden they go from, hey, okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing?
Where's your
It's like, why did you, it's not, there's no reason to get that, keep that light, but keep
Yeah.
yourself open to trying something entirely different. Now there's, sometimes it's very specific. It's like, we want this one take, no slate, one take, bop, done. Okay, great. Well, then what can you do with it? What if you were to change that up and do, okay, it's one version, and I'm going to change it. I'll tell you who does that a lot, and she books the hell out of stuff, is Lonnie Manella. And Lonnie, when she auditions, she'll go da 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 da, change. Da da da, different voice, da da da, change. Different voice, da da da, change. Da 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 da. So it's one take, but she's
But all
showing
different choices.
all of these different,
Nice.
because they're not going to go, oh my God. I mean, no, they're like, all of a sudden, wow,
If you're good,
holy
it won't
shit, come
matter.
here, listen to this. Wow, listen to what because everybody else is doing, oh no, I am doing this line and this. And it's like, realize it's an audition. The worst possible outcome,
Is
you
another.
don't book it.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to voiceover. I mean, it's not like, but you sure as hell will be memorable.
Hmm.
There's no doubt. So it's I think we all, especially with auditions, lock into this format that this is what it has to be, and the powers that
Yeah.
be, oh my God, they're sitting at the right hand of the voiceover gods, and if I piss them off, I'll never work again. And it's like, no, it's fine. Once again, they want you to book the job. So show
Exactly.
them. And the crazy thing is, it's so finite. I mean, sometimes you've got nothing more than, 5 or 6 lines, and that's what's going to book a character that may have 300 to 1,000 lines. So
Hmm.
show them it's like, if you're just
Yeah.
doing the voice, and one of the things I work with people a lot is pacing and volume, slow, because there's times, it's intimate, like you can, why do it's time to wake up. just like that. It's time to wake up. And then I go like this. Hi, I'm da 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 da, and I'm da, and it just stays all at that. Give it that depth. Play with the mic. Use that mic as a tool so it can be intimate. It can be loud. It can be you're talking to 4 people. You're talking to one. What if if it's introspective and talking to yourself, like where it says, then do it kind of oh, this is really great. It's that kind of under your breath kind of, yeah, sure, fine. Yeah. And that's perfect with that brings depth to that character.
Well, it shows you have range. A lot of people end up, like you were saying about pacing, a lot of people end up with the exact same pace all the way throughout.
Yep.
Every character they have has the same pace. They might change the voice, but there's not a big personality change if they all talk at your rate, at your speed, with your laugh, with your
And a
humor.
great trick for that is that when we read out loud, your brain is telling you to hit specific words and data, and your pacing is the same, et cetera. Well, what happens is when you do 2 takes, 99% of people do loud and soft. But
Yeah.
all your inflections are exactly the same. You're hitting
Yeah.
exactly the same. So if I'm listening to it, it's like this doesn't sound different to me at all. So a great thing is underline or circle a different set of words to hit.
Yeah.
And that also helps immensely if you're doing video games, because the AAA's will all have you doing ABC. And so
Yeah.
that helps you with giving that inflection. So the character's there, but now you've definitely got really different intent on each line because you're emphasizing a different set of words or phrases. And
That's
that really brings that sucker alive. And you can do it by circling it, underlining, whatever. But you really, I tell people, do 3 in a row and try that and really push those, and then listen back and you go, wow, okay, now, and that's
We do an
starting to,
exercise in some of my beginner classes. We'll do an exercise where they just have to say one line, but you emphasize a different thing each time you say it, and it
Mhm.
shows them how much it changes the meaning
Sure.
based on just that one thing. Also, something that Mark brought up earlier is that punctuation. You will hear from some coaches, follow the punctuation, follow the punctuation. I strongly encourage you to not worry about that direction, only because I debated it with a couple coaches that I heard say that. I said, "Why are you telling them that? That's exact opposite of what I teach them.
Mhm.
Teach them not to
I agree.
follow punctuation. Take it off the page. Do your own thing." And they explained that for car ads and certain ads, they want you to follow the punctuation. But ever since I was taught not to follow the punctuation, I've never followed the punctuation. And I book car ads and all those things. So
Sure.
there's no one rule about following the punctuation. But if you do a second take, um, change the punctuation completely.
Well, it's like ellipses. I'd love to have a shirt made up that said the ellipses are a lie. You see dot, 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 dot. It's like, it's meaning a natural pause for you, but people have a tendency to go, and that's why we're going over here today. It's like, oh, and it's like, well, that doesn't sound natural at all. It sounds like either a bad edit or you all of a sudden had
Yeah.
a senior moment or something.
Don't know
It's
what you're
like,
doing.
what
Yeah, yeah.
was I talking
Total dementia
about?
kicked in.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
And
like
dead air is not castable, folks.
Again, the key to that is and especially under the auspices of auditioning, that's, you want that to flow. You want that to sound, you want you to say, why am I hiring? I'm hiring you because you hit this and you knocked this out of the park as compared to what everybody else was doing. Compared to that, you're the one that grabbed this copy and made that copy come alive. And it wasn't because you follow the punctuation to a T. It's like, the funny thing is, it's no different than if you're reading. You might have, if you were reading to a kid at library hour, well, you might enhance the character, and then they looked and said, "What do you think you're doing?" That's not on the script,
No.
but it sure works when you're telling a story. So play around with that. I mean, again, the worst problem is that you don't, but it's not, things like labeling. Yes, that's very specific. I mean, don't screw around with that or you'll get dumped into a crap file or whatever, so stick with, and if they say tail slate, that means slating at the end, fine. You slate your name, then slate your name only. But
Certain rules to
that
follow.
little moment, it's no different than if you were doing, on camera or live theater, and they went, da da da, you did your bit, and they went, okay, great, thanks. Can I just give you one more take? They're always going to, oh yeah, sure, by all means, then
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We assume because we're home. Oh God, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's perfectly, once again, the worst possible outcome is simply not booking it, but
Yeah.
make yourself memorable.
Yeah.
Sometimes what happens, and this happens more often than you'd think, you don't book that. Oh God, she'd be perfect for her. Da, ba, ba, and you still book just a different character.
Yeah, exactly, which is good enough for us.
Sure.
I think a lot of people are in the fear of ad libbing is because a lot of talent are taking it to such a degree that they're rewriting copy. And you don't need to rewrite
And
copy.
that's
Just the
keep
writers
keep
need
an
to know that
ad
they did a
lib
good
to
job too.
4 to 5 words max, and only do it once. If it calls for twice and it's longer and it feels natural, great.
Right.
Otherwise, once.
Yeah. Otherwise, you really
Otherwise it
you're
sounds like
almost
you're trying to rewrite the copy.
yeah, you're rewrite and it come you can come across as you're showing off too. You can come across as you're trying to upstage the writer. Well, the writer could be right there in the room and be very insulted and think, well, why can't you follow my copy? That doesn't mean you can't embellish it and change it up to work for yourself. Like the
Sure.
script says yes, you don't have to say yeah. You can say yo, yep, yeah, yeah, whatever way you want to bring
Depending on the
that out.
character, absolutely.
But
And that's very true. I see that all the time with copy where they say he's very regal and elegant and da da da, et cetera, and the copy is like, where you think you're going.
yeah, it's not even regal in any
And
way.
it's like, well, that's not, I remember
It's
doing that
regal.
with there's a part that it was a legless brain, and what they were using as was Ian McKellen. And it's like, as you go forth to the mountains of Mordor, kind of thing. And it's like, well, it's not even close. This is like a David Hyde Pierce, that kind of like, no, it's my toys and I don't care. And if you're going to do it, then you just have to go home. I'm a legless brain and I hate you. And I mean, he even had one part where he has a big thing and goes off and has a complete poop fit and breaks down and cries and screams and yells. And it's like, I don't picture Ian McKellen doing that.
No.
So
Yeah.
I mean, and again, a lot of these things are just, there's something about it. That's why all of these cross references, and what happens is that throws us completely out of
Yeah.
whack. Like there was something about the pacing that she had on this, but they liked the quality of that, but they're not saying that. It's like da da da. Here's
Here, watch this and this.
here's some possible, here's some
Yeah.
links that,
And you got to
and it's,
guess as to what they like out of that.
yeah, exactly. My favorite is when you do especially like Chinese localization or Korean, and they'll go, okay, here's the link for this section. So, okay,
I had one of those the other day, actually.
guys, it's like I'm not trying to be a dick, but I have no idea what, like,
I have no
and
idea
this,
what they said. I
there's
can
like
almost get the
there's 4
emotion.
sentences in that, and it's like, yes, and it's like, I don't, is he pissed off, or is he just, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't have a reference point,
Yeah.
you know?
Which actually is something that you guys will discover in dubbing too, because a lot of the dubbing will be a foreign language.
Oh yeah.
So you'll listen to the foreign language and here's your script, what it's supposed to say. But when you go to voice set, it won't match at all because these people are speaking at such a different rate of
That's what you were talking
speech,
about, having to change that up on the fly.
different words. So they
Oh
might
yeah.
have to change
Oh
the
yeah.
script on the fly. And that's where, as a talent, you can get very helpful, but you also have to be careful not to overstep. Right.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm probably in the beginning, I think I overstepped. I don't think anybody told me. I just think I did because I love to be helpful. I thought I was being helpful by offering some direction to the
Oh
talent,
yeah.
you
I
know.
still do that. You'll throw it out there and you can hear the crickets, and it's like,
Yes.
okay, and then I just shut up and let them. It's
Well,
like, well,
this is fine line.
this
They
would
want
make
you to
sense, but it's like,
input. Yeah.
it's fine. It's like whatever you guys want. This would make sense, but obviously it doesn't to you, so I'll
Yeah.
just hear and shut up. You know. So yeah,
And
yeah,
I think most newbies probably don't go in there and try to direct. So I definitely made a big mark for myself going in there trying to direct because I was already coaching, right? I was already a casting director, so I was already directing somewhat some
Well, the
talent.
thing
So
is too is to be, prepare yourself for what's going on. What happens is, we all get kind of complacent, and then it's like, oh yeah, so I'm going to get into animation, and you work with a coach and you do 2 sessions, maybe 4, that's it, maybe do a demo, whatever. And then you sit on it and then it's, well, yeah, nothing's real. And you're kind of not really pushing, you are. And then all of a sudden, boom, and you don't know what the hell is going on, what's to expect, what to, you know, script wise, when I get the script for something, either it's when I'm walking in the booth, here it is, or
Yeah.
online, you go
Oh,
online, click, and they'll go, oh, here, let us put the script up for you. And there it is. Oh, this is the recent version. Sometimes I would say, honestly, 90% of the time, I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, you're walking into it completely blind, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, here we've got this character. You're gonna. This is a character you did before. They'll play me a reference, but then we have a new. I just did that, and then they have and there's 8 incidental characters, and that's where you have to kind of go, okay,
shit.
and really think like how we got to mix these up and make because these are village people and they're different and yelling and stuff and whatever it's kind of things and I had one of those with a Star Trek once playing a Klingon captain that was fighting Kirk. It was like, great, da, 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 got all of that kind of, da, Captain Kirk, da. And then they go, okay, now this next one, this is the captain. He's also a Klingon that's talking to the guy you just did. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. So you got to kind of just on the fly go, okay, got it. Okay, great. Da, 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 do this thing. Oh, yeah, there you go. Throw out a couple of things and they go great. And then you're flying with that. But be prepared
Mhm.
to fly by the seat of your pants. This is
Yeah.
not all completely structured and organized and down like this. And I've had people that go, well, because the majority of the reads that I do are, and it's like, this is not how that works.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, of course, there's things that are in your wheelhouse but our job is to whatever comes down that pipeline to shake your head and go, yeah, okay, sure, I got this I can do that.
And you saying that brings up a good point that us coaches should be very careful with because we teach talent to break down their copy, to dissect it, to understand the storyline, to know where they are, what they're saying, why they're saying it. But you don't always get that opportunity. You don't always get that time. So you also have to be quick on the draw and be able
Sure.
to adapt to anything. And that's why you want those stock characters. I mean, what about for you in the beginning? So now, you have years and years of experience, lots of different characters. When you were studying character development and stuff in the beginning, were you just going by stereotypes? Were you studying it? Did you do anything to make that happen? Or do you think it's just natural for you?
Um, Well, I think with anybody that does, there's a natural. I think it's no different than singing. You
Yeah.
can't. You sing. You can't really teach that. I mean, you can teach
Well,
technique,
no, you actually did because I wasn't a singer at all. I had to get I taught myself, but I still
right?
had to learn because I wasn't a good no one accused me of being a good singer when I started at all.
Well, but you still have that seat. Like, yes, you will
Yeah,
get.
it's a
You
passion in
can't
there,
you
yeah.
can't take somebody who's tone deaf
That's right.
and
Yeah.
go, okay, and have them train for 2 years, and it's still not going to happen.
Yeah, there still has to be
The
some
kid on American Idol, everybody goes, holy shit, and
yeah.
it's just a God-given talent. You're just a
Mhm.
jaw-dropping wow. I think that's very true. With character stuff, I
Yeah,
think what happens is a lot of people have an innate ability to mimic.
yeah.
That's usually where that starts.
Yeah, exactly.
And look at, whether it's, the clerk at the store, somebody in the parking lot, a lady
Yeah,
that's like,
same.
oh my God, could you tell me anything like utilize all that and build that into,
Yeah.
characters and then what it is, it's like the old onion adage. It's like, okay, here's the onion. It's like this, but I want to peel this part off a little bit and add a little salt on that part.
Mhm.
So it's that core voice,
Layer by
because
layer.
really, I mean, if you really, really look at the majority of voice, it's probably in essence breaks down to maybe, 10 or 20 distinct, really different voice. And then it's putting, taking those voices and either making it very charactery, pulling back a little bit, making it very real, making a dialect more real, more cartoony, more,
Yeah.
lighter, darker, big, small, all of that kind of, but that's kind of because the human voice is only capable of doing,
So much.
I love it when people go, well, I do 782 voices on my demo. And it's like, man, it sounds like you're doing every one of them. It's like, you know, so it's really just, I think it's adapting to whatever that character is and thinking,
And
all, number one, who's your audience?
yeah.
Is it little kids? Because little kids, they don't care whether a dialect is real. It's like doing the, hey, look at that, it's Lucky Charms, kind of stuff. I mean, that's not a real, but it's like, oh, he's a
They're good enough.
leprechaun,
It's good enough
you
for
know?
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, it fools you into thinking, "Oh, okay,
that's
great."
right.
You
Yeah.
know? So, and I think that's the key is like, is it that? Because I always talk to people, it's no different than if you've got an arch nemesis. Well, if an arch nemesis in a video game is chances are, "I will rip your heart out and drink your blood," kind of thing, as opposed to, "So bad." You have no idea, and it's like, and that's going to be real cartoony, nutty kind of stuff, or it may be pulled back. It may, but I mean, so there obviously you've got this extreme, and then you've got the other extreme. Well, then you can obviously lay that down somewhere in between that, depending on what that character is.
Yeah. And I
You
think
know,
they also have to understand what is cartoony versus what is real, because a
sure,
lot of people don't have that comprehension. And you might have a cartoony voice, but that doesn't mean they're reading a scene in a cartoony way. So
sure,
there's all sorts of different ways to look at that. I think a lot of people are very lost because I think a lot of people really want to get into animation. I think that's a big draw for most people in this industry is not commercial, it's not narration, it's mostly like, "Hey, I wanna do character work." And then you look at the fans of animation who are all trying to become voice actors now, which is
sure. Oh
what
yeah,
I see happening, and I've watched it for a long time, I guess, but it's getting more prevalent all the time. Many people that are fans of cartoons are not necessarily great animated voicers,
right. And if
because
you
they
look at the
love the
guys that are
characters,
really,
but
like Eric Bowser, Eric is astounding, and he just picked that up as a kid and would work on it and da 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 da, and that's why he's got so much range, and that's why he does Bugs Bunny and
yes,
Daffy Duck, and I mean he's phenomenal.
yeah.
He's really really talented. And that's a whole different genre. That's that mimicking that where and he just knocks it out of the park.
Well, isn't it kinda like the musicians? 'Cause I say to my husband all the time, like, "You didn't lock yourself up in your room when you were a teenager," and most of those musicians who are renowned right
Yeah.
now that you watch, they had no life. Like, they
Oh,
did
yeah.
nothing
That
but
that
lock
was
themselves
their
up in that
social life,
room.
was sitting with their guitar just going over and over and over and scales and that. Sure,
Exactly,
absolutely.
and I know
You
Bob
know?
Bergen, he memorized Porky Pig Stutter. He worked really, really hard to because it was just, "Okay, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I wanna do," and so I think it's that same analogy of I didn't even think of who voices a cartoon, and I love cartoons, but I didn't
Sure.
even think of it until I was cast. I was
Oh,
like,
oh, yeah.
"Oh, yeah, someone voices this stuff."
But I mean, even that's such with so many, channels now out there
Yeah,
as far as outlets for content.
yeah,
You've got, your Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney Junior, which is very sweet. I always laugh. It's like, now we're going to, to remember, don't judge Mr. Squirrel by his tail. And then you've got Adult Swim, which is like, look at the nuts on that squirrel. I mean, they're
yeah,
like, just pushing it. It's the Howard Stern of animation, and they're pushing as far as they can,
exactly.
And then you've got all of your, social media that, again, YouTube channel data that push as far as possible, depending on what the audience is. And it's just, it's being prepared to just adapt to whatever that is and have,
Yeah,
we all, and you're right, personal experience has a lot to do with where you go, and just in your life in general, whether, prejudices or not prejudices, or foods that you like or don't like, music
yeah,
style, all of that stuff. That's all kind of as you grow up, those are, you figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And it's very similar voice wise.
yeah,
It's like, oh, yeah, this works quite, like, I know, a great example is Bob does phenomenal, that higher range. I do mostly lower range,
yeah. For
and
sure.
so that's,
You get to know your strengths and figure out where
yeah,
they
and so it's which is fine. I mean, it's a
yeah.
a, a no brainer
I
kind of
think
thing.
I'm starting to get there now with my voice getting more damaged from pot and the band and everything else. I'm learning, okay, and I really enjoy the villains. I like the eviler side for some reason, and I'm very kind. I'm not an evil person, but I really enjoy that
I
character
think we
development,
should
I guess.
talk to your husband about this.
Yeah, we should. But I find that it's like, okay, now and so that goes for all of us as our voices change too, we gotta find where it goes because I'm trying to do little kid stuff because I do a lot of, I do these, little kids books, and
Mhm.
I play the characters, but the characters are starting to get rough now. You can hear that texture, that timbre inside the little girl, and it never used to be there. So now
Sure.
it's a matter of adapting, obviously, that kind of stuff, but it's also my strength is changing. I'm growing stronger and stronger. I'm getting older, and as we get older, we
Sure.
get more confident, and so all these things start changing. And you, as a voice actor, we're very gifted that there is never a retirement age if you
No,
choose to do it.
true, true.
There's
But you
always a
find that
castable
certain, like
moment.
for Atlas, they would always push because I always have that to be able to do that kind of, you have no, and keep that up, and I can do that shit for 4 hours, and just,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's not, and because I've been doing it so long, I'm sure, and I go to an ENT once a year and have them check everything out to make sure nothing's falling off, but
That's a
but I
great
mean,
another subject for us later on too, is just to talk about how to protect that instrument when we're
sure.
doing
Oh
these
yeah.
product placements,
Yeah.
especially for you men. And I think especially for someone like my voice now, because they're going to really enjoy the fact that you can go rough like that, and they're going to want you to do more, die again, jump again, and
Oh
you have
yeah,
to be the
sure. Oh
one
yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
controls that.
And
Awesome.
that's it, but it's just, it's doing what you do, and sometimes you need to be brutally honest with yourself. I
Yeah.
always laugh and I go, I don't do kids. Me doing a kid's voice sounds like I'm trying to lure them into the van with a candy bar. I mean, I don't do that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. I mean, I have, well, he's kind of
Yeah.
doing that. Come on, you guys, kind of that kind of thing, but it's not very real. It's really animated,
Same, yeah, and I think I'm
Yeah,
learning that about myself now. It's like, okay, now it's time to look at different types of characters for myself
sure.
so that I can find places that I don't have to struggle so hard to get into. Should be nice
Absolutely.
and natural.
And that's the key. Is just, once again, get out of your own way, but
Mhm.
realize this is what you do. I nailed it. This is phenomenal. This is great. But work on that stuff.
Stuff.
Don't wait
Yeah,
for it. And then all of a sudden you're on the
right.
sessions, on clients there, and it's like, okay, now it's time. You
Yeah,
know, be prepared, because you can just slip into, people go, well, God, it's easy because you just slip into Well, that just comes with after you do it for a
so
long,
many
you
times.
just
Yeah.
know where to go. Say, oh, yeah, okay, fine. It's not a big deal. That's why
There's
I'm not,
still
when I
again, there's
don't know what
still
I'm walking into, I don't freak out. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's like, obviously whatever it is I did, because half the time I don't even remember the odd, it's like, oh, that's okay, great. And it's like, sure, whatever.
okay,
And they'll
can
play
I
it
do
back
that
and you go,
character?
oh, okay, that, sure, got it.
Yeah, I have one right now that I have to do actually after our session, and it's a very big giant, and they didn't have a voice ref, at first because there's a brother and sister. And so I just went into a giant voice, which I knew sucked. I just knew it just didn't feel right. And thank God we ran out of time that day because it was like, okay, I am not ready for this character. So now I've worked on, okay, I'm ready now if someone gives me a giant because I just didn't think of a giant before. And so you're adding those little layers on top of what you think might be and finding those places. And there's a lot of mush mouth in it too. So it's also the art of being able to be clear when you're
Sure.
adding in all these
But
placements.
that, like, we were talking about earlier too. So is he a nice, big, is he kind of slow and
Well,
stupid?
it's young
Is
kids,
he,
so they're like really bratty brother and sister. So it's
okay.
almost villain, but for little kids kind of thing.
Okay, sure, sure. Okay, so yeah, so that's, but that's
That
going to have a much
friendliness.
different quality than the very
Exactly.
sweet. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's,
exactly.
and that's the thing to nail down. Once again, it's the emotion. That's what you're
Yeah.
selling.
And I think for a lot of, again, the younger people that are starting, a lot of them are D&D people, role playing,
Oh yeah,
RGP games, all stuff like that, RPG games. And they don't realize that when you're ad-libbing a character, it's a lot easier than when you have the script in front of you. Now
sure.
you have the script in front of you, it's not coming from your mindset, even though it's supporting it. It's actually already written out for you, and that's where they get lost. It's like, well,
But I
those aren't
forget,
in those
you said it
voices.
though too, somebody ages ago, but and it's very true. It's like, if you've mastered a character, it doesn't matter. The copy is immaterial. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
what it is. It's like, and it's the
exactly.
same thing. It's
You
like
can
if they
say
put that up
anything.
and they want it to be this, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
great.
you should be able to,
When
I always say,
it becomes hard is when they write it like pirate, army, and you're
right,
like, what?
totally not my
Kind of,
character.
and then you're
Yeah,
kind of getting lost to, okay, fine, but but yeah, you'll slip right in and just strip away those layers or add layers.
yeah.
That's really all you're doing, and it will be a success. But be prepared when
Mhm.
that happens. It can happen very quickly.
Yeah.
and it's like, boom, you're on. And even, I was talking this conversation I had with this woman. It was like, well, a lot of agents, if you're looking about science stuff, they will send you a piece of copy and go, get this back to us by 3 o'clock this afternoon, do two different takes or pick two different pieces. We want to hear what you sound like on,
Yeah.
you know, and then
Yeah.
you're going.
Yeah.
So
For
what?
sure.
So what are you going to do? It's like, well, I'm not reading that. I don't do that kind of copy. It's like, well, that's you just aced
Don't
that
do
one.
much then.
Yeah,
Enjoy
pretty,
your non-career.
exactly, pretty much. That's how that's going to work. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing as well to leave them with is get to know your characters so well. You can read the newspaper out loud with them. You know what
Yep.
cereal they love. You know how they fart, how they kiss, everything
Sure.
about them you can, so that no script ties you at all because you're
And
already
change that up.
yeah,
Do it and then change it into another voice, then change
yeah,
into another voice. And a
exactly.
lot of the times you really want to get to while you do that, record yourself and listen. And what happens, let it sit for at least a half an hour. Don't listen to it right after you do
Right
it. You'll
away.
pick it apart and
Yeah,
let it sit. And then when you come back, brain goes, ooh, I like that. No, that's not. And you file all that away. So and
exactly.
when you need it again, it's right there. Recall
Yeah.
is there to, oh, okay, great. Bring it
Now,
up.
in my career, I had character voice sheets. So you'd have a sheet that says what the character is, where it's from, what it looks like, where the placement is, a catchphrase, what it looks like, very descriptively, how it stands, how it moves in space and time, what would it sound like if it was a real person or things like that. And then do that voice ref as well. And I have a binder, which is like my Bible of characters that I've been filling out for like 20 years, and I get complacent, and so every once in a while, I'll go back through, "Oh, yeah, right, I forgot about that guy." And you can
Sure.
still bring him back 20 years later. Your voice can change, but you can still bring on what we talked about before, which is most important about your character is the personality. You can always bring
But
that.
that's a great example is people that do a lot of ADR that are like part of loop groups and stuff have books of stuff, a phrase for background walla. And it's like, okay, the next scene, basically it's a 1950s police station. Rip
Yeah,
open. And these are all phrases you'd hear at a police station in the 1950s, as opposed to a police station in the future, like Blade
yeah,
Runner or something.
so different.
And you can just look and go, boop, okay, fine. Watch a movie, write them down. But even military phrase, if you're not military, write down military phrase. If
Yeah,
you're doing an audition for it, you pepper a couple of those in there, and now it sounds very real. Yes, it's an ad lib, but it brings that character to life,
that's right.
and that's stuff that nobody else is going to be doing.
And don't think of just one military role. There's many, many
Oh yeah,
military
sure.
roles to
Oh
add
yeah,
in there. We get
absolutely.
very narrow-minded sometimes. I know I can for sure. Well, that was
Good.
awesome. We definitely took a twist today on what we were intended to talk
Yeah.
about, but what a great topic. In fact, it really launched a lot of other topics I'd love to talk about in the future. I think this was a wonderful insight for everybody to really look into character analyzation and how to really protect yourself through it. And we'll talk a little bit more about protecting your instrument and stuff as we grow.
And if you want to contact us, remember it's shut up at Gmail. No.
Shut
Sorry.
up at fuckoff.com.
Hey, that's my
That's our new
email.
handle. We will show you guys an email that you guys can
Good.
answer questions to on this thing. So look for the end and you guys can contact us. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Until then,
Absolutely.
I am Deb Munro. This is the Nitty Gritty.
And I'm Marc Graue, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for
A
having me.
podcast with no boundaries that tells it like it is.
This ain't your mama's show.
This is the Nitty Gritty.